Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Reed Davis on the line, and he is founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Certification Course, also known as FDN. And for those of you that have been watching the show for a long time, you probably recognize Reed. This is his second time on the show. He was so good the first time, we had to bring him back. So Reed, I just want to say welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, Adam. It's a real pleasure. I always love speaking with you and your audience.
So last time we did a deep dive into FDN, and we will definitely go into FDN and talk about the certification course and obviously your work overall especially for the viewers that didn't catch your first episode. And then we'll also dive into Intelopathy. So for those of you that haven't heard that word or aren't quite sure what it means, you'll know in a moment. And so stick around with us. But we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So Reed, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. What mission matters to you?
You know, I'm here on this planet to educate as many people as possible how to get well and stay well naturally, so that they in turn could educate others. And so far we've done okay. We've trained thousands of people to practice FDN, as you mentioned, and they are helping thousands and thousands of people each. So we've really multiplied the ability to help as many people as possible, to educate them how to be well and stay well naturally.
Yeah, and I love having you on the show, and I want to get into your backstory and really how you got on this path, because I know you're a real humble guy and you don't necessarily like to brag about where this has gone and the amount of the students that you've brought to the course and some other things. But one of the takeaways that I've always gotten, what inspires me about your story, is that you had this idea, you had this concept, and you built on it throughout the years. And then, I'm not saying it wasn't difficult, and I know you have an amazing team behind you, but now when you look at the amount of lives you've been able to touch, it's significant. So maybe just start a little bit at the beginning and tell us how you got on this path to really creating FDN.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I was in environmental law and saving the planet, air, birds, water, trees, bees. And I said this the last time I appeared. I, in the late 90s, started to get more concerned with people instead of the air, birds, water, trees, bees. I mean, all that's wonderful. It's a very fulfilling mission. But, I thought about people, and I didn't want anything sneaking up on me personally. I just saw stuff dying all over the place. And so I changed careers. I went to work in a clinic where they trained me, and I also gave me a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted to help people. As a non-licensed practitioner, I couldn't diagnose or treat anything specifically. And I found out that was the best thing I had going for me, is that I didn't have any preconceptions. My job was to find out what was really wrong with people and help them fix it. So it's a completely self-empowering, and the thought that ran through my mind a lot was, boy, these people who are coming in the office, they're seeking something alternative, and yet there isn't much out there that doesn't just treat the symptoms. And I really wanted to get to the root of everything I could. So I spent the next 10 years, Adam, running thousands of labs with thousands of people and making my own observations. Even though I had good mentorship, I started recognizing patterns of what was really wrong with people. And I came up with a way to systematize that so that eventually I could start teaching. I mean, that wasn't my thought at the moment. I just wanted to help people walking in our office. That was my only intention, was help as many people as possible. And it was later that I realized if I taught other practitioners, we could expand the reach, obviously. But that's it. I just went to work in a clinic. People I found were caught in a cycle of trial and error, going from one frustrating something that didn't work, whether it was lotions, potions, powders, pills, therapies, diets, exercise programs. Nothing was helping. because they weren't really working deep enough at the causal level. And so with my environmental background and the studies at that time really going into physiology, anatomy, biochemistry, I came up with a system.
And so I don't want to assume, so, some people out there may not be exactly familiar with the idea of like labs, like what that means, how that kind of works. Now, obviously, I don't want to oversimplify things, but maybe just a basic overview of how like the labs process works and kind of how you got to that point.
The systems we look at are really complex.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on. A lot of it's undiscovered. But it's actually a good thing, Adam, to simplify. Yeah. We should be simplifying this. And I spent 10 years in that clinic being the patient educator. So I had to take all this really complex information and find a way to break it down for Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones, who were looking at you for help, and desperate in many cases. So the simpler, the better. But I learned to take this saliva testing, urine testing, stool testing, blood testing, and instead of just looking for a diagnosis, a label, and then here's your treatment. That's how standard medicine works. Label, here's your treatment. It's either pills, could graduate to surgery if the pills aren't working. I get so many funny stories, but where they just cut the parts out, just cut the parts out, But no, I wanted to put the power back in the hands of the patients so that they could take control. And all they really needed was enough information about this constellation of, here's the term, healing opportunities. Like what's out of balance, what's not functioning right, and what are the causes of that? So we started working at that very high level, or sometimes very distant from where the symptoms are actually occurring. But when you look at that constellation of healing opportunities using the lab work, and again, we make it real simple: hormones, immune, digestion, detoxification. It's very easy once you grab the system to figure out. And then you just start healing those areas and your problems go away, whatever it was. You get back to normal function. People want to have a lot of energy and clear thinking and healthy bodies and all the fun stuff, that you need to enjoy your life. And so we just discovered a system that if you go by the steps, it's actually very simple. The labs are simple and the interpretation is simple. We just explain. These labs actually explain why you feel crappy. Oh, wow. How come no one ever explained this to me before? If I had a nickel for every time someone said that, how the same goes. So yeah, we really do simplify it. We use the labs, but we make it simple so that you're empowered. You know what to work on, and we teach you how to work on it.
Yeah. And so one of the things that you mentioned, and I know that you speak on pretty often, is really some of the differences between how, the typical treat the patient Western medicine, maybe with a pill, right? So that's the diagnosis. What kind of pill can we have? And then, as you mentioned, then graduating to surgery or just all kinds of other things that maybe aren't always necessary with the right data and with the right intel. So I think this is a kind of a good transition point for us to get a little bit further into today's topic. So Intelopathy. I'll tell you, I'll be upfront. I didn't know what the word was when I first heard it, and I didn't know and I had to do some research on it, but I Googled it, and all of your work came up first on Google, first page. So I was like, okay, I would expect that from you, but let's go a little bit further. So how did this idea come up for Intelopathy?
It's so simple. Once again, intel, as you mentioned, or intelligence. We first recognize the innate intelligence in every cell, tissue, organ system. There's an intelligence in the universe, and you don't have to teach any cells in your body what their job is. They have intelligence. So we use that intelligence, or we play off that intelligence. We first of all just recognize, be aware that there's a lot of intelligence that we have nothing to do with, or we sometimes aren't even aware of, put it that way. Yeah. And so then there's a pathway. If you want to be healthy and vibrant and sexy and anything else that appeals to you, you need to be on the pathway. And sometimes it's a little narrower than we would like. So it's an intelligent pathway, and it's based on this idea of there is infinite wisdom and great intelligence in the universe, and we can tap in, we can be aware of it, and it will help us. So that's on the sort of philosophical side. On the practical side, Adam, it's as easy as gather intelligence, like run the right labs, get them all, get all the data, all the whole constellation of healing opportunities, and the person's history and complaints and their lifestyle and their environment and all the factors that are having an influence on their bodies and minds. And you create the intelligence-based pathway to health and wellness, or vibrancy, or whatever it means to a person.
And I one of the things I like about it is that I feel like people need tools. So people need tools and language. I mean, obviously I'm in media and I use language every day through interviews and things, but I know how powerful language is. So when I saw that, you took that next step to kind of get this phrase or get the word out there and to kind of and to define it and to kind of build, I would argue, a brand around it, right? So that people can then have a new way to understand the concept. For what Intelopathy can mean, what it can mean in their life. Tell me a little bit more about that part of it, because I feel like you took it a step further. Like, a lot of people want to help, but you've given us a new tool.
Well, it's an evolving science and methodology, so we're always learning. Even this morning, Adam, I was reviewing some things, and I thought that the current state of medicine isn't as far advanced as the people who practice it would love you to believe. In terms of our understanding of the complexities, we're not there yet. We're maybe hundreds of years away from a true, thorough understanding of every cell, tissue, organ system, and again, the complexity is amazing. But we can't wait for that. And we don't want to just leave our health up to scientists. Again, we know how to tap into this innate wisdom and intelligence in each cell. It's not always enough. I mean, there are weaknesses, weak links in metabolism and in every individual. But if you understand the principles that are involved, like the right diet and right rest and sleeping and exercising, and really important and critical stress reduction. I've spent 20 years just studying different types of stress and how that affects the body. And of course, supplementation, there are some advances in these areas. So I think that, Intelopathy is the current highest standard in terms of where we want to end up. Again, modern medicine is great. If you get Ebola virus, you're not going to call your nutritionist. If you get a gunshot wound, you're not going to call your health coach. You're going to look at modern medicine. But in terms of really taking care of yourself and your family and your community, and what puts the power back in the hands of the people, which is my mission, is this idea of there is intelligence, and we want to apply it by you being on that pathway, where you're applying those principles.
I'm glad you bring this up, by the way, because it's not that you're against modern medicine. Like, it has its place, but there's just so much, as you mentioned before, that we don't necessarily know. And there's just so much potential even to use tools with what we do know to get different results. So for maybe some people watching that haven't really ever explored, let's just say, the holistic, or definitely like the testing side of things, or maybe some of the things that you do at FDN and teach at FDN to your course participants, and then of course the practitioners, patients, or clients benefit from, like, what kind of things are possible kind of going down this route of Intelopathy? I mean, and I know like on the high level many things, but like, what kind of things have you seen? You've been in this business for a long time, and you just have a really unique vantage point.
Well, it's remarkable what I've seen, or would be considered miracles if we didn't know. It's actually quite simple. I had a lady, for instance, who was 5 days a week, she was in a dark room with a pillow over her head with severe migraine headaches, and no one had any solution for her. She was just, oh, well, here's your medicine, and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And, there's that old joke about doctors like to cut the parts out. Well, it doesn't work well with migraines because the part you'd have to cut would be their brain. So she was proverbially screwed,
Yeah.
And all I did, this was back in the early days, and I didn't know everything that I know now. I could say I didn't even know what I was doing, but I just thought, we'll run a few labs that were handy to me. And it turns out she had some real severe sensitivities to things in her environment, including some food she was eating and such.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we changed her lifestyle, again, a different pathway, a little narrower pathway, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't breathe these fumes, don't use that particular, hairspray, and just different things that were easy. Her migraines went away. Within 3 weeks, she said all she gets is the occasional ordinary headache. I don't believe in ordinary headaches either, but it changed her life completely. I have story after story after story as I was going through this discovery process. Remember, from 1999 to about 2008, I worked in this clinic, really just testing and observing, noting patterns, and getting good guidance, of course, with some really smart doctors and these lab scientists. Some of these people are really dedicated to helping us practitioners look at underlying causes, look way upstream. Again, this entire constellation of healing opportunities appeared to me. That's the pattern I recognize. And so that's not where doctors go, to answer part of your question. They look at, what are the symptoms? Well, it sounds like, let's say it sounds like thyroid. It sounds like low thyroid. And then they check the thyroid and they go, yep, pat myself on the back, found your problem. Here's your prescription. And that person might even feel better. But they haven't changed anything that caused the thyroid problems, like stressors, and the fact that the body's really just responding to these stressors, maybe in a hibernating way. That it's actually responding appropriately to the amount of stress they're under to slow down metabolism. That's what the thyroid. So we find that the answer isn't just to test at these levels that are very close to the symptoms. We go way up. And here's the other interesting thing that happens. A lot of these causal factors, hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, environment, energy production, nervous system imbalance, all these things, they're crashing into each other and have an effect upon each other. And some of them aren't singly measurable. So you can't give That's what physicians want, is something that's out of range so they can give it diagnosis, so they can give it treatment. And that works to relieve pain, and that's not a bad thing. But if you want to fix it, you've got to go way upstream. That's what Intelopathy starts to encompass. And something else I know is that there's even farther to go than we're going. We run 5-6 labs on every person. And questionnaires and thorough history taking, and we really get to know them mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and biochemically and chemically, and on and on. So there's just a lot of intelligence to gather, but the pathway becomes pretty certain. And when people follow it, their lives change. Like that one story I told you seemed miraculous. It really was quite simple. I've got kids that were, a lady brought me her son. Would you work on children? Well, I love children. I raised 4, and I coached football for 15 years. So yeah, I've worked with. Well, help my son. He's being sent home from school. The teachers say he's got ADD. They want to put him on drugs. He's poking at the other kids, not paying attention. And within a very short period of time, matter of fact, here's what happened. Within 3 weeks, the principal of the school, Adam, tracked me down. Like, well, who's this guy? And what did he do to Billy? What did he do? He got me on the phone. Finally says, what'd you put him on? And it wasn't what we put him on. Anything is we got things out of his brain and the nervous system and environment, and he turned back into the normal kid he was supposed to be. I've seen that happened over and over. Kids on my football team that had asthma, gone now, and they went on to be great athletes and things like that.
Wow.
So yeah, I got miraculous stories that have kept me going for all these years, and that we know. Again, we have a tribe. I mean, I have 3,000 practitioners out
Yeah.
there, so it's quite a beautiful
And
journey.
so one step back from there, because I do want to go into this tribe, because it's quite remarkable. But so now, but I want to paint a little bit more of the story. So now you obviously, like, you've done all these labs, you started, a practice, and now you decide at some point that you want to be of benefit and you want to teach other people really how to also help people, is essentially what you're doing. Like, how did that transition happen?
It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
One thing, I was out lecturing. I only did this for my clinic in Southern
Yeah.
California. I didn't even own the clinic. I just wanted it to be successful. So I was out lecturing all of the time to gather new clients and patients for the office.
Mm-hmm.
And people kept coming up to me at these lectures going, I remember one old lady just looking up at me going, "You should be teaching the doctors." She just liked how I talk. It was obviously not what she'd been getting for years and years of normal
Yeah.
healthcare. And then I was driving home from a lecture one day, and I had just picked up a whole handful of new clients, and
Yeah.
I got a call from a lab director of one of our labs, and he said, "Who the hell are you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, how many doctors work at your office?" I go, "Well, there's a couple." And I said, "But I'm the only one using your lab, running it." He goes,
Yeah.
he said, "You run more labs than this famous doctor who
Yeah.
had 5 doctors running labs working there. You by yourself are running more than these 5, 6 doctors.
Wow.
How are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, I didn't know. I didn't know you couldn't. I just
Yeah.
like doing it, and I didn't know it was doing anything special." Uh,
Yeah.
but he said, "Well, you should be teaching others. Whatever you're
Mm.
doing, you should be teaching others." Like, he could tell how much good work we were doing by the
Yeah.
volume of labs and things. So
Mm.
I put a class together. It was July 13, 14 of 2008. I just did a
Wow.
weekend workshop, and 20 people showed up, and they were
Amazing.
practitioners, and their jaws were dropping at what I'd been
Yeah.
doing for 10 years. And that's when I realized, really, man, I can help this many people in my clinic, but if I could deputize all these people, then we could really do some good on the planet. And
Yeah.
that was my mission anyway. Remember, help as many people as
Mhm.
possible. And so that became my MO, just teach, 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 teach. So I've been, growing the tribe, so to speak, because
Yeah.
once people take our training, they want to hang out together. It developed this community that I didn't know there was going to be a community, but there is. And we've learned to keep them engaged, and there's all this support, and we have a whole association of our practitioners, and on and on. Again, I have 30 people work for me now. Back then it was me and one administrative assistant. That was it. And by the way, I did it all with a pager and a fax machine. To think of what you can do today with the communication technology that's out there.
A pager, a fax machine, and I won't let you glance over the started a business in 2008. And the only reason I have to pull that little fact out there is because, it's, 2022 for people that'll watch this in the future, January 2022, where, we're going through some things, just overall, a pandemic, a lot of other things going on. And, there's some displacement. There's also some transition for people, but there's always there's opportunity sometimes out there when you don't necessarily see it. So I just had to pull out that 2008 because I didn't know that from our interaction. I didn't realize it was in that particular year. So when the world was kind of going through some things. So that it's just an amazing story.
There's always been things going on in the background, like you just mentioned, the pandemic thing.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is when that happened in 2020, most of my practitioners weren't sent home. They already were at home. So
Yeah.
back in those days, in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
And I was lecturing around and all over Southern California.
Yeah.
That's when I pretty much created or helped to pioneer
Mm-hmm.
work from home practitioner.
Yeah.
We don't need an office. We can work through the mail. Now it's email, and back then I was mailing out packages again, fax
Yeah.
and pager. But it's just an easy system that you can. We what I'm trying to say is we said, well, we already work from home. No one's sitting
Yeah.
at home, and
Yeah.
we're helping thousands of people who now were really seeking help. Because when you're healthy, your risk of anything is reduced. You're much more resilient and resistant.
Mm-hmm.
We know lots of people who haven't caught the C
Yeah.
word.
And so, just going maybe a step further here. So, because there are some people that will watch this that they feel it's their calling or they want to learn or they're looking for opportunity. Maybe just tell us a little bit more about FDN specifically, like the course, and let's go into some of that detail for people that are out there looking for something.
Well, thank you. It's a really robust course. I mean,
Yeah.
I teach you what I learned in 10 years of practice in about 10 months. So
Yeah.
you don't have to run thousands of labs and thousands of people
Mhm.
and learn the patterns yourself. I did that for you in a sense. All you have to do is take the course, and it's very logically laid out. I had a lot of opportunities to reiterate it year after year after year. We're always updating it and reiterating it, but it includes all the physiology, anatomy, and biochemistry and things. Physicians find it really interesting to get my perspective, but lay people take it too because they love
Yeah.
the way I teach. I don't use too many big words. I
Yeah.
really break it down for the lay person because I am a lay person. And so I teach you what the labs are and what the data we're collecting is and
Mhm.
why we're collecting it and how. Then probably the most important step is how to correlate that with an individual person. So it's really
Mhm.
practical. It's really based on all that experience in the office. Mrs. Smith, Mr. Jones, and their kids and their uncles and aunts and cousins, and just case after case after
Yeah.
case. So how to apply or use the data to
Mhm.
explain why that person feels so lousy, whatever's going on with
Yeah.
it. And we don't care about their medical diagnosis. We're not interested in that too much. That's between them and their doctor. And a
Yeah.
lot of those are just words anyway. What's really wrong is what we want to know. And the labs help us determine that. And then there's the program. So once you uh, get all the data and
Mhm.
design a program for that person, like what's the path, the intelligent pathway they need to follow, then we can help them so we engage people for a period of time in kind of a coaching methodology where we watch over and answer questions and give honest feedback and hold them accountable and help them correct course because everyone's going to. It's like sailing a ship. You tack and you come about a little bit, you zigzag a little. um, there's different wind and currents and waves on the bow of the ship and all that. There's no motorboating to health. It is
Yeah.
like, and so that's the whole process that I teach is how to be an individual practitioner or
Mhm.
collaborate with others is fine, and work with people one on one, run the lab, design the protocol, and that's
Yeah.
the RESS that you're familiar with, the lifestyle
Mhm.
solutions, and then how to actually work with a person for a period of time. So the minimum is, let's say, 90 days. If you go
Yeah.
to a practitioner and they run a lab and say it's your thyroid, they'll say, here's your prescription, come back in 90 days.
Yeah.
We run a bunch of labs, give a bunch of recommendations, and then
Mhm.
work with you for that 90 days and then another if as
Mm.
necessary until we've taught you everything we know. And now you know and can share it with others too. So I teach that course, and we have graduates all over the world, and we have a graduate assistance program run
Mhm.
by a really wonderful lady. She'd make a great guest for your show. Um, she's the director of my Association of FDN Professionals. So
Mm.
it's really grown. This again, this would provide tremendous value in terms of the level of training. But
Yeah.
the community and then the ongoing engagement within the community is just
Yeah.
amazing. It's all self-driven. Like I didn't think of everything. I just learned as I went, you know.
Yeah, and so one of the things, well, a couple things I'll pick out that you said. So first thing is whether you don't necessarily have to have a background in this, like you're taught, and you're taught in layman's terms, as you said. So you don't have to have a background in medicine or something of that nature. But on the other side of the coin, like even if you do have a background in medicine, then you can also benefit. So it's its own practice. So I think I like that first. And then the second thing you mentioned is, or another thing you mentioned is also the community. So I think, that obviously everything that you're doing is based in science, and you've been refining this course for years, and you've been refining the practice. And as you mentioned, that you're learning daily. Like this is just the process. So I know things continue to get better, just like medicine, like different things to continue to get better. But that community part and that support part, maybe elaborate on that just a little bit more, because I think it is another thing that just makes FDN really special overall.
Yeah, again, I'm. You said I was humble. No, I'm humbled by it. You know, it is
Yeah.
a humbling thing to have happen. You know, the first of all, the success the system gets within the suffering public. You know, it's remarkable, and that's very humbling. But the fact that the people I've trained are so appreciative of the 10 years I spent. It's like I almost feel as if, hey, that was just the setup. That whole 10 years, thousands of people
Totally.
was the setup, you know. So that's it's humbling to be appreciated by these. I don't want to call them followers of me. They're followers of the pursuit of
Mhm.
knowledge, and it's a very rewarding thing for a guy like me. You know, I just worked real hard. I outworked most people. I still do to this day, and I share and share and share. So people do follow that. They look for the leadership. I provide that in some other areas too, like personal growth and development and things, business coaching and development. I'm pretty good at business, so there's a lot of things going on there. But the community won't go away. You know, I'm not a big, you know, I'm kind of a low tech guy. As I said,
Yeah.
the first thing I noticed is, well, my students have formed a Facebook group years and years ago. And then it became like a herd of wild cats, you know, like, so I had to like sort of step in and go, well, here, let's remember what we're all about. And that developed into forming an official association of FGN professionals and hiring people to run it. And, you know, they pay dues, and then you got to deliver all the continuing education. And so it really, plus we've had conferences and symposiums of our own,
Yeah.
dance parties, you know, and you name it. It's just a community that thrives.
Oh, that's my takeaway. That's the quote of the day for interviewing, or maybe the month. I don't know. Year so far. We're in January. The community won't go away. They're awesome. It's great. And I mean, it's just a testament though. Like that's the real testament to it. Like a community like that grows organically, that are united in this case around FDN, and really helping people and being a service. And as the technology, I mean, I'm sure in those days when you had the pager and the fax machine, we were thinking about this community on Facebook and all the other
Yeah,
things that are going. It's a
yeah,
lot, right?
yeah. I mean, you know, there was no iPhone when I
Yeah,
started.
yeah.
Yeah, just no Facebook, nothing, and some of it is, you know, I am an older guy. I know how to use a computer, of course, but um, uh, what the possibilities are endless. It's really
Mhm.
amazing. So I've learned to again bring that team around.
Oh
Out
yeah.
of our graduates, people want to help. Hey, I could do this and I could do that. Um, and I okay, let's do it. Let's
Yeah, it's
man,
awesome.
let's help more people.
It's a great story, Reed, and that's why I was excited to have you back on the show. And so I just have to say, I know you're a busy guy. Lots of things going on. I know the community's vibrant. FDN's on a roll. Intelopathy, and really taking that term and to the masses, so that they have a tool and they have of the vocabulary to then start thinking about the way they heal themselves, or healing opportunities, as you say. I mean, all these things are awesome in my opinion. So I just have to ask, so what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for FDN?
Hey, well, sometimes when you are working really hard, you don't really know. I don't set a lot of goals.
Yeah.
I've just set direction,
Mm.
and had other people around me that could help in the pursuit, that are better at the details. I'm really not a, even though I love getting into the science, and I can follow a thread of a
Yeah.
cell, and organelles, and I can follow that. But as far as running the business goes, I just hire good people, and
Yeah.
we take accountability for certain areas, whether it be the sales and marketing, or the production side, or future outreach, public relations, all the things. I could just say that it's going to expand to the point where I'm just one little guy in it.
Yeah.
I just want to contribute to the ideas. The idea of Intelopathy is important. I recognized it 5 years ago. I made up that word, and I just put it on the back shelf, and I kind of waited until we grew,
Yeah.
because FDN means so much more than just functional diagnostic nutrition. If you go
Hmm.
back to the last episode I did, we defined that pretty well. It's so much bigger, and
Yeah.
so I'm just excited about how big it's going to be. I would like for it to be a household word. I would like for fathers to teach their kids what it means. Maybe when they're 8 or 9
Wonderful.
or 10. I
So
mean,
if somebody So if somebody wants to learn about FDN, and to connect with your team, or go further into telepathy, like what's the best way for people just to follow up and get information?
yeah, the functional diagnostic nutrition.com/podcast would
Yeah,
be the best way. So it's functional diagnostic nutrition.com/podcast. And
fantastic.
and they'll get there.
It's
It's
great.
it's a whole new world, and we're really just sort of beginning.
Mhm.
Like medicine, it's actually pretty primitive.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
primitive.
I'm in, and I'm excited to continue to watch your growth, to watch your team do what they do, and we'll put all of that contact information, of course, in the show notes, so that our audience can just click on the show notes, and on those links, and head right on over and check out FDN, and everything that you're up to. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters, we're a platform that's all about bringing on mission-based entrepreneurs, executives, and experts, and really figuring out like what motivates them, like what gets them going, like how are they going out into the market and into the world and making a difference. If that's the kind of content that appeals to you, we definitely welcome you to hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Reed, as always, a pleasure. It really was great having you back on the show. Thanks for coming back on.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure, and I really respect and appreciate what you're doing with Mission Matters. You have great guests, and I'm very humbled and appreciative to be one of them.